It's time to take a look at the Experimental Cadre Detachment. Michael, what is the detachment rule for this army?
The detachment rule is superior craftsmanship. And essentially what it means is you get plus 6 inches of range for all of the ranged weapons in your army. So every tauempire unit is going to get plus 6 inches of range.
I mean, that's fantastic.
It's great.
For a shooting army, right? I mean, that's probably one of the best things you could get.
Yes. The only issue you have is that there will be a lot of units in your army that have quite long range anyway. So they're not really getting anything out of the detachment rule.
I guess so. Like broadsides probably wouldn't really care too much.
Yeah.
But actually getting it on things like your melters, your short range guns, what other units do you reckon would benefit a lot from this?
Yeah, so essentially we're looking at the Sunforged suits for the 18-inch range melter, as you mentioned, the fusions. We've also got the Star Scythe, so burst cannons going to 24, and then also the Flamers going to 18s, really, really nice. And then also breaches, I think, are a beneficiary, because anything that's quite a short-range gun but gets very powerful is basically going to get the most out of this attachment rule.
Yes.
In short. But what it does allow you to do is you can play against other armies that might be shooty as well, and you can kind of keep your distance a bit better without committing your assets. And if you play against an army that is balanced, then you can try and deal with its melee assets, but also keep out of threat range of the shooting assets they might have.
Well, I think this is the thing with fight, even against melee factions. It means you don't have to be 12 inches away, which is a charge range, right?
Yeah.
It means you can step further back, which means they now are going to get much harder charges onto you.
Yes.
So that's quite a big impact for fighting a melee faction as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the Flamers actually getting the 18-inch range means your Overwatch threat is also more significant.
Yeah, it's a lot more scary.
So, yeah.
All right, fantastic. Enhancements, what's the first one?
The Supernova Launcher is the first one. So all of these enhancements are like a souped-up version of one weapon that the bearer has. This one is a special version of the air-bursting fragmentation projector, which is like an indirect fire grenade launcher. What it does is it gives you plus 3 strength, so it goes to strength 6, an extra AP, so AP1, and then extra damage, so it becomes damage 2.
Strength 6, AP1, 2 damage is a nice profile. Even an indirect profile, which just means it's quite nice to be able to maybe shoot a unit of scouts if you're playing Space Marines or something of that nature. And the AP just allows you to kind of get past that cover stage, unless you could get someone spotting potentially and helping you out there. But it's nice to have, I guess. Yeah,
it's good to have. You get to 30 inches of range as well with it, which is quite nice. The issue Tau have with indirect is that you normally would want to fire the indirect weapon separately.
Right. Okay.
But with the guiding system, you'd be firing at a -1 ballistic skill.
Sure.
So you'd be hitting on 5s or 6s if this was on a commander, which is a significant downgrade.
It's pretty big.
Not really worth it in some cases. However, if you don't have anything else that's shooting with that unit, and you do have them attached to, let's say, a fire knife unit, you could reroll hits, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's good.
Or alternatively, Star Scythe, get an extra AP, be guided, ignore cover as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's take a look at the next enhancement. What is it?
The Thermoneutronic Projector.
These are a mouthful, aren't they?
This one's the Flamer.
Okay.
So you pick a Flamer weapon, gets plus 2 strength, so strength 6, an extra AP and an extra damage. So strength 6, AP 2 damage. It's still D6 shots, but it goes now to 18-inch range with the detachment. Obviously, it auto hits and it ignores cover. So for me, I'd probably be putting this one in because it also affects Overwatch.
Does this mean that the Flamer it could go to AP3?
Yeah, Star Scythe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, AP3 ignores cover, damage 2 Flamer in Star Scythe.
That's pretty good.
It's hot.
Spicy. It's a spicy meatball, that
You're
one.
cooking.
Yep. I like it. Right, what's the next one?
Next, we've got the Plasma Accelerator Rifle. So no surprises, this is a plasma rifle. But for this one, we get plus 2 strength, so it goes to strength 10. We also get an extra attack, so we're 2 shots now for this weapon. And we get plus 1 AP and plus 1 damage. So the raw profile of this one gun you're basically looking at is 24-inch range with the detachment rule, strength 10, 2 shots, AP 4, 4 damage.
That's good. It's a nice profile. The fact you got an extra shot is the reason why you'd actually take it, because otherwise you probably wouldn't ever look at it, would you?
No. If it's only buffing 1 shot, then what's the point?
Yeah.
You're not going to spend points on that.
Absolutely.
So it's not a bad one.
Last one?
Fusion blades.
Combat weapon.
Sadly not. If you are a fan of Tau through the ages, you'll recognise a lot of these names come from relics from bygone eras of Tau codexes. The Fusion Blades was a melee weapon. It is not a melee weapon here. However, it's still pretty good. So you're going to get an extra shot first of all. So now you've got a 2-shot fusion blaster. It also gets plus 3 strength. So it now goes to strength 12. And it's still got AP4. Its damage doesn't change unless you're in half range because it becomes Melter 4.
So D6 plus 4 damage shot, and you got 2 of them.
Yes. At 9-inch range, plus 4 damage.
That's a spicy meatball as well.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm excited to see the combos because I think with the stratagems and stuff, I think that's where we're going to start to see some of these shine, hopefully.
Yeah.
So let's go straight into it. We can look at it all at the end. So what is the first stratagem?
The first stratagem is automated repair drones. So in the command phase, not just yours, you can heal a battlesuit model, D3 plus 1 wounds. Okay.
That's pretty good.
The fact it's not just your command phase makes this really good. Because you could have someone like, let's say, Farsight, who can use this for 1 less, so 3, because it's only 1 command point. You could charge in, take some damage, heal in your opponent's command phase. And then if you take damage, you can heal again in your own command phase.
You had me at charging, so... Yeah. Okay, I like it. All right, what's the next one?
So it's reactive impact dampeners. And basically, you can use it in the shooting phase or the fight phase. So your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. And you use it on a battlesuit unit. And what it does is if the strength's higher than your toughness, it's -1 to wound. To the end of the phase.
Ow, that's pretty good. -1 to wound if the strength's higher than toughness. So if it's on battlesuits, it means anything strength 6 or higher, it's going to be -1 to wound against battlesuits. Yes. And in combat is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah.
Almost akin to where we saw it with Star Shatter. So, is it too good?
I guess the difference here is not all the crisis suits have invols.
True.
Whereas all the Necron vehicles do have invols.
Yeah.
So there's less of a barrier, so to say, really on the damage profiles. Because at least if you have high AP, it really does hurt crisis suits.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, this is an absolutely amazing stratagem to have here.
It's superb. Crisis suits have always been... people have always complained about the fact they're toughness 5. And I get it. So now you can be a lot more durable against anything, as you said, strength 6 or above. But we can look beyond crisis suits to broadsides, but even bigger than that, riptides.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Riptides getting -1 to be wounded. They've got a 4-up invulnerable save. That's going to help them stay alive a lot longer. But the fact that you can use this in both phases means that you'll probably use it in the shooting phase when you get shot and in combat against certain targets.
Yeah, I mean, this on a ghost kill could be quite obnoxious, actually, because of the blanking damage. You've got 2 sets of blanking damage. Usually, if, let's say, you're shooting a last cannon into it, or you shoot multiple to try and get those blanks off, well, you now could play this, and you could probably save one of those blanks, potentially, by just stopping wounds coming through.
Yeah.
So that is a scary prospect, actually.
Works on stealth suits as well.
Okay, that's pretty good still to have in the pocket. Yeah. Fantastic. What's the next one?
Experimental weaponry. So this is one that you do in your own shooting phase. It's 1 command point, and basically till the end of the phase, your unit can re-roll the number of dice when determining how many shots they get.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Star Scythes are really shining here with the flamers.
With the flamers.
And the character with the enhancement flamer.
Thermoneutronic projector.
Oh, that's a thermo-spicy stratagem.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
So you definitely take one of those units just because you've got this. I have looked through the codex for other places that it's useful. There's not a huge number, actually. You could use this on a hammerhead with the ion cannon.
Yeah.
I think the other vehicle that has the most D6 shots is a Storm Surge. So if you're running a Storm Surge, at least you can make it a bit more reliable.
With let's say you had a unit with the 6 flamers. I think you get 6 in a unit, don't you? Or maybe 9 flamers.
6 flamers total.
6 flamers,
and then the commander.
And the commander.
Yeah.
So if you rolled like a couple of 6s in the pool when you're doing how many shots you get, could you just pick up the bad ones and re-roll them?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So you can pick which ones you re-roll.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, you absolutely could. So it's each time you roll 1 or more dice for a weapon. So even though you roll them all at the same time, technically you would be rolling for an individual weapon each time. So you'd be able to pick the ones that you thought were rubbish.
That's good. That's really good. It's really doubling the efficiency on Star Scythes, who are already really good. And Flamers are fantastic, right?
Yeah, with the plus 6 inches of range.
And the extra AP against the closest target, right? Against infantry, sorry. Yeah.
Or anything that's not a monster vehicle.
Yeah. Amazing. Fantastic. So, fantastic. What's the next one?
Next, we've got experimental ammunition. So for 1 command point, we can pick one of our Tau units in our shooting phase, and we can give them either +1 strength to all of their ranged weapons.
Nice.
Or +1 strength and AP, but gain hazardous.
Okay, so this again maybe on Star Scythe is pretty good, because you could go to strength 5 burst cannons.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't want the AP, because then you don't have to risk losing an entire battlesuit potentially.
Yeah, even the strength 5 flamers is.
Yeah, even strength 5 flamers. Yeah. Could you combo this with the re-rolling die shots?
You can, yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
It does have a rider that you can't combo this with the next stratagem.
Okay, cool.
But other places to look at this, it does work on any tauempire unit. So breachers now could have strength 7 AP 2 guns.
That's good.
With reroll wounds, and they're probably dead in your opponent's next turn anyway.
Yeah,
so just take the hazardous.
Yeah, just lock and load.
Lock and load.
Put in that experimental ammunition and just let loose.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So there's a lot of cool different units, I think, and it's worth having a look if you're a Tau player at each of the different shooting profiles you've got and seeing, where does +1 strength and AP go?
And what targets you're going into as well, because the +1 strength might, just like we said with flamers, now they're struck from strength 4 to 5, it's effectively +1 to wound. So looking at that break point on different armies and stuff that you typically play against would be a good idea to have a look at with this stratagem.
Yeah, 100%.
What is the next one?
Threat Assessment Analyzer.
I'm not good at this.
So it's 1 command point, it's in your shooting phase, and you can't use this one along with the last one, but you can pick either sustained hits 1 or lethal hits for all of your shooting attacks. You can pick both, but you gain hazardous. Okay,
I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, getting sustained or lethal. I'm glad you can't combo this with the other one, because you could have Farsight doing both for 1 CP, couldn't you?
Yeah.
But still, it's really good.
Yeah, I think there's potential here for, if we're looking at breaches, you could have 2 breacher squads. Each one could use each stratagem, so you've got 2 pretty lethal breacher squads. But equally, if you've got 2 crisis teams, whether that's Star Scythe, Fire Knife is quite good with this, then those units are also going to be benefiting a lot. You could have 2 units doing devastating damage.
Well, you could you could do the hazardous version on any of these, and then in your opponent's turn, you could just heal if you do maybe take some hazardous, because you've got the drones that can heal you stratagem. So there's some really nice synergies here, actually, I think, that work quite well. But sustained or lethal or +1 strength and extra AP it's a nice thing to have in the pocket.
And finally, we have the NeuroWeb System Jammer. So this is one used in your opponent's shooting phase. After they've selected a crisis unit as a target, your crisis unit becomes unable to be shot at unless they're within 18 inches.
Okay, so we get loan up on a Tau unit?
Yeah, 18 inches. Crisis suits only, but they are the ones that are quite susceptible to enemy shooting because of the T5. So you could loan up this unit, and then you could -1 to wound the other unit that you might have out in the open. So you've got a lot of defensive stuff for your battlesuits, as well as offensive stuff. So every strat in here is either something that's going to help you do damage or something that's going to mitigate damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is great. Or heal.
Or heal, yeah. I do think that this is probably a better version of Retaliation Cadre. It does have a bit more synergies to it, and I don't feel like you're putting yourself at too much risk. And the damage output is definitely better, I would say, because we have the range, we also have the buffs with the strength and AP, we have sustained or lethal, so we have some of the best abilities we can get for damage, whilst maximising the range and the threat that we can do with our shooting units. Yeah,
it's an interesting version of Retaliation Cadre, because you get durability from it, whereas Retaliation Cadre you don't really get any durability from.
You've got the Feel No Pain strat, and that's it, haven't you, really?
That's about it. Yeah. From the Retaliation Cadre, you do have the move after you've shot, which is really, really useful.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. And you've got the potential 6-inch deep strike for 2 command points. So you've got that. But once you've used the 6-inch deep strike,
that's it, really,
you don't use it very much. So it's nice to have strats that are all 1 CP, but fantastic, and you're going to use them over every single turn. Yeah, 100%.
Well, let's take a look at a SWOT analysis then. What is the main strength for this detachment?
It's got to be its threat range. So the threat range from the units in this army obviously has been increased by 6, but Tau naturally have a very good threat range. Crisis suits are heavily encouraged here, as are just battle suits in general. But with Cold Stars, you can get Assault, and you can get Movement 12 base. So you've got 12 inches, plus your advanced move, now plus 6 inches of range as well. You can reach most angles on the tabletop. and if you need to shoot down certain lanes with units that are a bit more short range, which a lot of your really good suits are, then you're going to be absolutely fine with that. And your commanders, which you are normally taking a lot of anyway, are even better because commanders don't do much beyond damage.
And we have some good damaging strats here in this detachment. All right, well, what is the main weakness of this detachment?
So the main issues with the detachment are kind of common with Tau in general anyway. Your ability to take people off objectives without line of sight, very limited. You don't have any battle suits that are really good OC that can just stand on there and take it. Your indirect fire is pretty poor. And even though your range is +6, your movement's not +6. So getting certain angles onto those buildings that are maybe covering an objective is a struggle. So if you're building all into battle suits, then you're going to struggle to take objectives off people. And you may struggle to hold them as well.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Is I guess we're encouraged to sit back and get our range extended and things like this. But we've also got to sit on objectives, which are usually mid-board where our opponent is. So the game is all designed about being up close, really, when you're trying to hold objectives. So if we're spending all these points into crisis suits, and we're really limited on where we want them to be if we want to gain the most out of this detachment. So I do see what you're trying to say here with obviously the objectives as well.
Yeah, which leads us nicely into the opportunities, right? So the opportunities for this is to take those units that are good for holding objective markers and taking them. Breaches, for example, we've talked about a couple of times, are OC2 per model. So you can just stand on an objective if you need to take that objective off your opponent. Equally, you've got things like Crute that you can look at for having stand on an objective. You could have 20 Crutes out on an objective. And sometimes that's enough of a stat check to whatever's trying to charge you anyway. Yeah, true. Or you can have them run out and run onto your opponent's objective, and that's enough OC. They don't really want to have to deal with that unit, and they're cheap, so you can take a fair few units of these in your army. So do look out for opportunities to take objectives and hold objectives with units available to you. Yeah,
and we have units that are good at infiltrators as well. We have stealth suits, we have ghost kills, which are really good for things like that as well. Riptides are very durable now with that a stratagem combined onto them, so they might be good at just sitting onto an objective and holding it for you. So there's different avenues that we've got in the codex to help us there. What is the major threat then to this detachment?
A pretty fast melee army is normally an issue for Tau. You're sure you have the -1 to be wounded in combat, which, don't get me wrong, is really, really good. But fast melee armies are going to tie you up. You know, Riptides, Ghost Kills, and Star Scythe can all fall back and shoot. So they're not at as much threat. But as soon as you're looking at the other suits, they get tagged. They're now not really able to contribute to the game as much. They've got big guns, obviously, so they can shoot the thing whatever they want to. It's all at -1, and they're going to get hit in combat again. So pushing your opponent back using fast melee assets and trying to take out the units that can fall back and shoot is going to be effective. But
also multiple charges is how that's going to be effective. If you just do one charge, then using the stratagem for -1 to wound is a very simple decision. Whereas if you can get 2 or 3 big charges off with units you know that could one-punch one of those units that they've charged into, well, then your opponent, one of the Tau will just lose assets too quick, and they're not going to get the most out of that detachment. Whereas if you just do one big charge, you pop the strat, and you're probably fine at the end of it, and then you're all good, right?
Yeah.
And then you fall back, shoot, and carry on doing whatever you need to. All right, fantastic.
Last weakness is lots of OC.
Yes.
We've already mentioned that.
OC,
the weakness, so the last threat, is if you face an army that innately has lots of OC, maybe it's a very battle line heavy army that's, let's say Orcs, Green Tide, if we happen to see that, or Tyranids with just a couple of bricks of gaunts. That's a real issue for us because they just walk onto our objective. Guard, a unit just walks onto our objective with OC 20, potentially 30, and we just can't hold that.
It's just about making sure you've got the Overwatch threats ready, you've got the shooting assets ready to maybe counter these units and kill them as quick as possible. So the aggressive Montcar style is probably going to be interesting in that regard, right?
Yeah, and you've got positional move blocking that you can do. You can put a unit of crew in front of your objective marker to stop your opponent moving on it. And you're sacrificing the unit, but it's for primary points.
It's for the greater good.
It's for the greater good.
Right, fantastic. Well, what units are going to be standouts here? So obviously we've got the crisis suits. So all 3 variants all have a place here, and they're going to be very, very strong. But which one do you think is the star unit here?
Well, I think it probably has to be Star Scythe.
I set it up for you.
I think the big combo is the Star Scythe Flamer unit with the reroll of your shots, and then getting the strength and AP, pushing all of those flamers to AP2, and strength 5 AP2 ignores cover. All of those shots, and then a commander with the strength 6 AP3 2 damage flamer as well, and of course he can have a bunch of other guns. You don't necessarily take normal flamers on him or her. You're probably looking at like the cyclic ion and some other shots that really want to get a benefit from the extra AP, because you want multiple profiles from that unit. But the re-rolling the number of shots you get just makes Star Scythe flamers much more reliable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right then. Now, what is another unit we could look at here that's going to be really good in this detachment?
I think the Riptide is a standout, because you can heal it D3+1 in both command phases, and usually it takes more than a turn for your opponent to actually kill a Riptide, because they're quite durable. But in addition to this, you can start pushing your strength a bit higher, so you can actually damage vehicles, you can get that AP buff, and you can be -1 to be wounded. Which is absolutely fantastic when you're facing armies with like lots of las cannons, or vindicators or whatever it might be in the current meta. You can now be far more durable and have that 4-up inburn and then heal. I think another unit to look at is probably broadsides. So with the high-yield missile pods, we can get to strength 8, AP2 2 damage, and of course we can get ignores cover just from a marker light unit spotting for us. But we also have then the missile drones as well, which is another 4 shots per broadside at strength 8. Now AP2 2 damage as well.
Yeah.
So this is a huge amount of strength 8 AP2 2 damage with ignores cover coming out of this one unit.
Marines are literally crying at that because it puts the power armor body. You're wounding them on 2+ now rather than a 3, so it's +1 to wound here effectively. And now you're putting them on a 5+ save unless they can get armor contempt. And then obviously you've got ignores cover, so it's really, really powerful, that. And I think, how many shots do they get on their high yield missile pods?
So it's 6.
6
and it's
total.
twin linked as well.
Oh wow, okay.
I think the real kicker here, they have a 4-up depending against mortals.
Yes.
So their hazardous is going to inflict 3 mortals.
And then they get
They just ignore them on 4s.
Yeah.
So you can just keep using the hazardous strat over and over on them. And you could have 2 units here of 3 with missiles. One can have the strength and AP. The other one can have sustained hits, or sustained and lethal.
Yeah. I mean, that's really good. I do think there's so many options. I know you mentioned the Storm Surge. That's another one with all of its damage on profiles, getting the extra range, with the strat potentials as well. There's so many things this is why I think this detachment's pretty good, in the fact that there's so many data sheets that this is going to buff, and we're just looking at stratagems and +6 range, which is quite a basic buff, but it's a massive buff in regards to data sheet and profiles that we have here.
Yeah.
So I think, make sure you go through this codex, you have a look at all the data sheets that you want to take, and just see what profiles you can now start hitting up into with this stratagem and also the obviously a +6 range combined.
Absolutely. All
right. So where do you feel this? We've spoken how we think it's a good detachment, but do you think that this is now going to be the main way to play Tau competitively? Do you think it takes over maybe Calyon or even Retaliation Cadre?
It's difficult to say. Tau haven't been gracing the game as much as we've seen them in the past, so it's difficult to say whether this is going to change how people play. I mean, if I was a Tau player and this came out, obviously it's new, so I'm going to try it, but also I think it's got really good competitive legs. When you're in a world of Astra Militarum with lots of shooting, and also Eldar with lots of good shooting, now having the defensive capabilities and being able to outrange your opponent, really, really good. So I think it's in a great place as it currently stands, and definitely worth a look, especially because it affects your entire collection.
Yes.
So no matter how experienced you are, you're going to get a lot out of this detachment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a universal detachment, isn't it, really, which is it's good to see. It's good to see. Well, Michael, thank you for going through that with me and lending me your knowledge of the greater good, and hopefully this has given you some insight into this detachment. We're going to take a look at a list next, and we'll see you in that video next.